One Bucs fan fixes the biggest issue facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading into the NFL draft. That and more on today's Mock Draft Monday episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so please subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, so you always get the latest episodes when they drop. I'm David Harrison, your Tuesday host and staff writer for BucsGameDay.com, part of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, here, there, or on Twitter at DHarrison82, going solo for this Mock Draft Monday episode. No, this is not your Tuesday episode. This is your Monday, but I am solo today, so make sure you're still following my co-host, James Yarcho, at JYarcho_Bucs, and find him at SB Nation, where he is the deputy editor of BucsNation.com. Living large and in charge. On behalf of James, I thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or review today and every day. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you happen to be. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn to get 10% off your first month. Answering a quarterback question we received during our live episode Friday evening and diving into a mock draft from the Sporting News. But first, we're starting this Mock Draft Monday with a listener version that builds upon the signing of safety Ryan Neal. This mock draft comes from our buddy Eli, who starts off the mock draft that we're looking at today with a trade with the Dallas Cowboys. In this trade, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get pick number 27, pick number 90, and pick number 129. Meanwhile, the Dallas Cowboys get pick number 19, and they get pick number 196. Now, Eli didn't say who the Cowboys were taking in this trade, but I went ahead and ran the mock myself, and in that simulation, the Dallas Cowboys moved up to number 19 to take Pitt defensive tackle Kalijah Kancey. Very, very interesting. Not good news for the Washington Commanders, the other team that I cover, but this is Locked On Bucs, so we don't worry about that, and we don't care. Number 26 overall, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come up onto the clock with the Dallas Cowboys' original pick, and they take offensive tackle Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Very popular choice these days in the mock drafts. We're going to hear more about Darnell Wright coming up on today's episode as well, so stick around. Number 50, we come back and the Buccaneers get edge rusher Derek Hall out of Auburn, an explosive type of player, team captain there at Auburn. Not great against the run, so you're definitely looking for pass rush ability only as a rookie, and then hopefully you can develop a little bit of size, strength, and get that run game defense going a little bit better. Number 82, we get defensive lineman Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green, and then we come back at number 90 with cornerback Garrett Williams out of Syracuse. Smaller than typical Todd Bowles cornerback usually is. Garrett Williams, though, is better in zone coverage than he is in man coverage, so that's where he can kind of bring a little bit of ability to the team, and that size deficiency kind of goes away if he can play smart in zone, which he can. And the good news is, even though he's a little bit smaller in stature, he is a willing tackler, according to his Syracuse tape. Pick number 129, we get running back Rashawn Johnson out of Texas. Some people think that's the better running back out of Texas. Solid compliment for Rachaad White there in Tampa. Number 153, we get tight end Josh Wiley out of Cincinnati. Pass-catching tight end with plus jump ball ability. Not NFL strong yet, but he can get there. And meanwhile, pack a potent 1-2 combo with Cade Otton. And then also you add O'Keefe in the mix. A very good, solid, young group of tight ends there for the Buccaneers. Number 175, we get Alabama defensive tackle DJ Dale. Come back 4 picks later when we get Ole Miss offensive lineman Nick Broker. And then number 181, we get Louisiana wide receiver Michael Jefferson. And we round this thing out with pick number 252 going to safety Javarius Owens. Owens, previously a cornerback, played for Houston, played safety for Houston. A physical defensive back type, does tend to take some poor angles in run support. And when he's trying to cut off routes, of course, that is why he's a 7th round pick. Something for the coaching staff to teach, develop, and mold Javarius Owens into a more rounded defensive back / safety. But in the meantime, put him in the box, help him be better against the run, kind of making that linebacker safety type hybrid that Keanu Neal kind of was. Again, he's a 7th round pick for a reason, so you're not going to get a whole lot of burn out of him. You don't expect in the first year, but that's kind of stylistically what you might hope for out of Javarius Owens, and then some special teams contributions as well. So overall, I think a solid mock draft here from Eli to start today's Mock Draft Monday episode. You get that tackle position fixed and solidified there. Darnell Wright comes in as your right tackle. Tristan Wirfs moves over to the left. You get Ryan Jensen back at center. Robert Hainsey and Aaron Stinney are arguably your two guards. Luke Gedeke, you either take another step forward with him at guard, or you move him out to one of the tackle positions, see where he can kind of compete best, and then you kind of go from there and you build out the depth of your offensive line. I think I like it. Derek Hall is a guy that we've seen before. Talked to Damian Parson of the Draft Network and Locked On NFL Draft podcast about him recently. A very solid type of pass rushing prospect that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can look to use significantly. And then, the addition of the power back to complement Rachaad White. I think you have a little bit of everything that you want here in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft class, except for maybe quarterback. There's some people who want to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft a quarterback in this year's class. So we'll see if we get a little bit of that flavor moving forward through today's Mock Draft Monday episode. And then, of course, we've got plenty of draft conversation coming up as the NFL draft is just a couple weeks away, really, at the end of the day. Eli also asked a question, emailed us and asked us a question about our live episodes. And I figure if Eli's got the question, some of you probably also have the same question. So full story up front. So here's kind of how it's going to work. We had a meeting with the network recently about kind of episode timing and numbers and data and whatever what they all mean. And it's kind of above my head, really. It's a lot of math and a lot of projections that we don't have to worry about sitting here, fortunately. But what those numbers say is that we might be able to better suit your needs as Bucs fans if we publish our audio episodes pretty much immediately. Like as soon as I get done with this episode recording, I'm going to polish it up. I'm going to go into the system. I'm going to put it up. It's going to be on your favorite audio platform of choice almost immediately. YouTube, we're going to be publishing our episodes 9 a.m. day of. So like this Mock Draft Monday morning, 9 a.m., this show will go live on YouTube. Those times are Eastern time. So if you're West Coast, 6 a.m., you're going to wake up to this thing. East Coast, 9 a.m., watch it, as you're getting your day started, listen to it in the background. Some people do that with YouTube videos. However you want to consume it on YouTube, it will be available for you at 9 a.m. Eastern, and then so on and so forth. We try to do our live episodes every Friday at 7 p.m. Now, sometimes that hasn't been as consistent. We will try to get better at being consistent on that for you. So 7 p.m. Friday nights before you go out, before you do what you need to do for the weekend, we want to send you into the weekend with the latest Bucs information and analysis that we can give you. So hopefully that provides a little bit of clarification. Again, those new times start this week. And again, we'll give it a run for a little while, and then we'll talk with the numbers people, and they'll let us know if that's going well or if that's not going well. So Eli fixes the offensive line. Hopefully I won't say fixing because the show's doing great. You guys have been amazing. We love all of you. And we can't appreciate your support any more than we already do. So Eli fixes the Buccaneers offensive line in his mock draft, and hopefully we can give you guys a little bit more clarity, a little bit more consistency on the time that our show gets published on YouTube and on audio platforms across the board, so that things get a little bit easier to track. But what if Eli was reaching for Darnell Wright despite the trade back? That'd be interesting. Vinny Iyer and his projection says that might be the case. We'll dive into that more next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we'll do that thanks to our friends over at BetterHelp, because this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/lockedon and get on your way to being your best self. Being in the Army was hard at times, but also simplistic in the way that they kind of set my identity for me. So when I retired, it was a culture shock all of its own, because for the first time, who I was more important and more impactful than what my uniform was. And the year that followed my retirement was a nonstop onslaught of lessons and experiences. And the learning honestly still hasn't stopped, even though I'm going on 3 years since I retired. But I've gotten a little bit more comfortable in riding the waves that come along with it. Therapy is all about expressing your self-awareness, developing your self-awareness and your self-understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk things through. And BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are in that journey and geographically. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime you need to for no additional charge. Develop your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Thanks for making the Locked On Bucs podcast first view or your first listen of the day. The Buccaneers get Darnell Wright again in this next mock draft, but they get him much, much later. And the first pick is going to be a little bit polarizing. Vinny Iyer of the Sporting News has the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Kentucky quarterback Will Levis with the number 19 overall pick in the first round of the NFL draft. This, according to Iyer's latest 7-round mock draft, again over at the Sporting News. Vinny Iyer, not only a writer at the Sporting News, but host of the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. So if you need any help or assistance in the fantasy football realm, make sure you give Vinny a try there as well. Will Levis, prototype size quarterback in the draft, pro style system at Kentucky, all good things, but he does struggle with ball placement and accuracy. For note, if you're interested, Hendon Hooker, who the Locked On Bucs podcast has been an advocate of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers targeting in this year's NFL draft, went number 81 to the Detroit Lions. So that's where Hendon Hooker ends up. And Jared Clock's clock for no longer being the starter in Detroit officially gets started. In the second round at pick 50, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get offensive tackle Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, a full 24 picks later than the Buccaneers got him in the first mock draft that we looked at today. So that's quite the spread there for Darnell Wright's stock. I don't know who's right, to be quite honest with you. I certainly look at Darnell Wright as a guy that could possibly go at the end of the first round. I don't see him lasting to pick 50 at a minimum, but listen, projections are wrong all the time. Mine and including Vinny's as well. Absolutely. Darnell Wright, right tackle, much improved in 2022. The only flaw in him really at this point is that he's much more of a catch blocker than you want him to be, something that can hopefully be taught out with time as a second-round draft pick here, according to Vinny Iyer of the Sporting News. Pick number 82, the Buccaneers stick with offense, and they stick with offensive line, and they grab guard Andrew Voorhees out of USC. A plus run blocker starter potential could fall to this point. He was kind of a day two, or he was kind of a second-round, third-round type of projection before he got injured at the NFL Scouting Combine. Now certainly kind of squarely there in round 3, potentially even getting down to day 3 due to that injury. Extensive starter experience, but it is going to be some time before you are able to get him on the field. For the Buccaneers, when you look at your offensive line and you've got Robert Hainsey shifting back to guard, you've got Aaron Stinney coming back from injury, you've got Luke Gedeke, who many people speculate could return to his collegiate position at right tackle. You bring in Andrew Voorhees, and even if it's not till the end of the year or next year that you really get to even start tapping into his potential, you have a guy that you probably got a deal on drafting him here at number 82. Number 153, we look at safety linebacker Marte Mapu out of Sacramento State, Big Sky Player of the Year, and AP first-team All-American. Strong diagnostic ability, knows how to read the play very, very well. Not big enough for full-time linebacker duty, much more of a hybrid, kind of a Buffalo nickel type of player that Todd Bowles could potentially shift around his defense as he sees fit. Come back, number 175, we get running back Israel Abanikanda. I'm pretty sure I said that correctly. I practiced it a whole lot. Out of Pitt, zone scheme type of runner, plus speed, not super fluid, but does know how to put his foot in the dirt and kind of get north and south for his team. A good compliment there to Rachaad White potentially. I like the first compliment, honestly, in our fan mock, but this one isn't bad either. Number 179, we get wide receiver Antoine Green out of North Carolina. Antoine has got good deep ball ability, reliable hands, does not separate all that well, but you give him some jump ball abilities, and again, those hands come in handy when he's not free of traffic a lot. Number 181, we come back cornerback. We get Mekhi Garner out of LSU. Physical player, potential as a safety as well. Right now, he's got very raw feet, which is probably one of the reasons he's such a late-round draft pick projection. Number 196, we get defensive tackle, edge rusher Tavius Robinson out of Ole Miss. Tavius has good rush agility. He's got a variety of rush moves that he likes to use to set guys up, but he does not have much of an anchor, can get ridden out of his gap from time to time. Number 252, we wrap up the class with edge rusher Robert Beal Jr. out of Georgia. And Robert is certainly a guy that's got NFL length, NFL size, looks like a 3-4 outside linebacker, gives a lot of effort in contain when he's assigned to that. But he does have a lack of collegiate production, which is a little bit concerning when you consider the defense he came from certainly produced a whole lot. So again, that 7-rounder from Vinny Iyer of the Sporting News, and you look at it, you feel a lot of needs here. You get the offensive line addressed in the first 2 picks after the quarterback comes off the board. You get a tackle, you get a guard. So the future of that Buccaneers offensive line certainly getting addressed here in this mock draft. And then you come back with a Swiss Army knife type of defensive player. Still kind of looking for that nickel. Now, maybe Mapu can play nickel right off the bat. Maybe that's where the Buccaneers find a way to use his skill set, but I would prefer a much more kind of solidified nickel type of player if you can get one. Again, the running back out of Pitt, don't like him as much as I like Rashawn Johnson out of Texas, but you address that position. I still think in this scenario, you come into training camp, Keyshawn Vaughn is still probably your favorite to get some time with Chase Edmonds there behind Rashad. I would much rather get a running back a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit better quality, and get a guy that's kind of your running mate with Rachaad White versus someone who's going to just be in the same room. Not a whole lot known about the wide receiver, a good depth guy, that you're looking for. Again, cornerback there at the end. And I kind of like the potential here. You have the last two picks, number 196, number 252. You get two guys that have some immediate skill, some immediate ability to do some things on special teams. They certainly look the part, right, of an NFL player. And we've heard stories of Todd Bowles kind of saying like he looks for football dudes. It's just kind of something you pick up on and you see when you look at them. And if those two guys give him that vibe, potentially could develop into some contributors, role players on into the future for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So not a bad mock draft here by any means. I think obviously the big topic of conversation is going to be Will Levis at number 19. You just brought in Baker Mayfield. You drafted Kyle Trask in the second round not that long ago. Now you bring in a first-round quarterback in Will Levis. Basically put the clock on Baker Mayfield before his time really even starts as the expected starter, right? But then there's a lot of people who still say Kyle Trask is going to come in and prove everybody wrong. But then you have a first-round quarterback, and we know how this goes. Everybody wants to see the first-round quarterback play. You're not going to get away with drafting a quarterback in the first round and never playing him. Like that's just the bottom line. So eventually Will Levis is going to have to be the starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or you're going to end up trading him, and you're probably not going to get first-round capital for him. If you do, you'll be lucky to get the number 19 overall pick from somebody in relation. Personally, I don't get it. I don't like the pick. I think if you're going to go with a rookie quarterback, you probably trade up and try to get the best one that you possibly can. The way I look at the Buccaneers roster right now, you've kind of already settled your quarterback's picture for this year. Let's see how this year pans out. Let's see if Kyle can take a step, see if Baker can prove to be the guy. If they can't, you have a much better cap situation. You have a much better roster as far as young talent, veteran talent, holes plugged and filled that you don't have plugged and filled currently right now. And you go into next year's NFL draft much more equipped with knowing who your team is, and you plug a young quarterback potentially in to that situation. That's just me personally in the first round. I don't like going quarterback Will Levis here. Personally, Will Levis is much more of a day two prospect in my opinion, but quarterbacks get overdrafted every single season, and that's essentially what we're seeing here with Will Levis, and I will stand by that assessment as we go further into the month of April. That is it for mock drafts today, but we've got a mock revision question kind of coming up that was asked about the quarterback position. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. And today's episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you by FanDuel. Grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back, just like the Washington Nationals having a lead and then blowing the lead and end up losing by one run to the Colorado Rockies. That's back as well. There's no place to get in on Major League Baseball action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Place your first bet and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. Right now, if you want to play it safe, you can bet $100 on the Houston Astros or the Los Angeles Dodgers to win the World Series. They have the best odds according to FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if they win, you will get $650 back in that bet. Of course, if you want to get really, really bold, go with the Oakland Athletics, who have the worst odds. Put $500 on them, and guess what? If they make the impossible happen, you will get a cool $500,000. Get four buddies. Each of you put in $100, and you might each walk away with $100,000. I don't know. Whatever you choose to do, don't miss your chance of getting a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. I tell you guys all the time that while you're watching the episode of Locked On Bucs on YouTube, if you got questions or anything you want to discuss, drop them in the comments. You can also email us. You can hit us up in the DMs. There's lots of ways you can get a hold of us. Danny Mercado did exactly that on YouTube via our live Friday episode just this last week. While we were shooting, Danny Mercado dropped a question into the live chat that I promised him I would address on this Mock Draft Monday episode. So we're going to do that right now. And it is about the quarterback position, and it is about Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. And Danny wrote, I got to get your guys' take on Lamar Jackson's situation in Baltimore. Knowing what we know now, should we have gone all in on Lamar, give Baltimore the picks, and sign him? So, knowing what we know now, should the Bucs have gone in on Lamar and given the Baltimore Ravens the 2 first-round picks it would take to sign him away from Baltimore? And I'm going to say what I said then. I'm going to say it right now. No, they should not have tried to sign Lamar Jackson. Now, I will say this, and I said it before, every NFL team that does not have a clear-cut franchise quarterback, that does not have a Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, a Joe Burrow, a Jalen Hurts, a Patrick Mahomes, should have called Lamar Jackson. Just been like, hey, dude, what do the numbers look like? Hey, Harbaugh, if we offer this dude a contract, what's the likelihood you match it? I don't know if you would tell him that anyway. But yes, you should have had a conversation. I think if you don't have a franchise quarterback, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your fan base, honestly, to have that conversation. So do I believe the Buccaneers should have called him? Yes. Now, at the end of the day, do I think they would have or should have even signed him? I don't, and here's why. The non-exclusive franchise tag Lamar Jackson is set to make right now, if he signs and agrees with it, plays for the Baltimore Ravens, is set at $32.4 million. You are not signing Lamar Jackson for any less than $32.4 million because that's what he could get right now anyway. Why is he going to come to you for even less money? All of that is fully guaranteed. It's protected against injury, all of those good things that a player likes to have. Now, what is Lamar Jackson looking for? He's looking for stability. He's looking for a future. He's looking for the opportunity to potentially be the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. If you believe the rumors and reports that sometimes he's kind of disputed, Lamar wants at least Deshaun Watson money. Deshaun Watson money is $46 million a year in annual average value, with one $8.9 million void year attached to that contract. The Bucs are already paying this season alone $35 million in dead cap for Tom Brady. So even if you got Lamar Jackson's 2023 cap number down to say $20 million, right? Probably a $9-10 million bonus, and then $9 or $10 million of his salary getting paid out this year, you're talking about spending $55 million this year on a quarterback. $35 million for Brady, who's not playing, $20 million for Lamar Jackson. You're talking about spending $55 million in a year where you started that much more in the hole. And if you do that, you're losing players. And the $26 million remaining on your annual average value. So again, your annual average value is $46 million. You're paying out $20 million this year against the cap. That $26 million on the average has to get paid out somewhere. So you're kicking that can down the road, yes. But eventually that can is going to catch up to you. Cap restrictions basically guarantee the dismantling of your defense. So you have no balance on your team. You have no complementary football because now Levante David's gone. Now Jamel Dean is gone. You're not bringing in, well, you could still bring in a vet minimum safety, but the key members of your defense are now walking away. Now your draft capital has to get spent on all defense, and you have to hope that every single one of them basically becomes a year one contributor. Now, I know on this show we talk about the salary cap being Fugazi, it's pretend, it's whatever, but that has its limits. Okay, the salary cap does exist in certain aspects, and when you're already paying $35 million in dead cap space for a quarterback that's not playing for you, you cannot afford to pay $20 million, maybe even more in cap space for another one in the situation the Buccaneers found themselves in this offseason. So a Watson-like deal, the Browns currently have over $63 million dedicated to Deshaun Watson in 2024 and 2025 against their salary cap. If you put the Buccaneers in that situation, you really can't rebuild this defense. Spotrac is estimating a $256 million salary cap for the 2024 NFL season. If that's accurate and Watson's numbers stay the same, which again, the Browns could feasibly get that $63 million lower, but you're only getting it so low. I mean, you're not pushing $50 million down the road, guys. So out of that $63 million, you figure at least $43 million of it is actually going to have to come and hit next year's salary cap. You're talking about 25% of the Cleveland Browns salary cap space being spent on one player. A quarter of your salary cap is getting spent on one player. That's ridiculous. The highest percentage of cap being spent on a quarterback this season is 18.7%. Almost 7% less is being spent by the Kansas City Chiefs on Patrick Mahomes, who is a multi-team MVP. He's won 2 Super Bowls, been to 3 Super Bowls, and he's being paid 7% less of the Kansas City Chiefs salary cap than what Deshaun Watson is going to get next year for the Cleveland Browns salary cap. While you can kick some money down the road, certainly you can only kick so much. Eventually, that money's going to come back, especially if you're paying that much money to one player. If this was next year, then look, yes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could absolutely make those figures work because the $35 million dead cap number, all this other dead cap money is going to be gone. It's going to be expired. You have a fresher cap. You have a little bit more money, but not this year. Absolutely not this year. It was not possible. Now, if Lamar plays 1 year on the franchise tag, gets that $32.4 million from the Baltimore Ravens, I don't think the Baltimore Ravens tag him again. They could tag him again, but if they do, it's $38.9 million next year. That's obviously much closer to $40 million. If you're going to pay Lamar Jackson $40 million, just give him the contract he's asking for and call it done. So the Baltimore Ravens, I don't think they franchise tag him the second year. So now next year, if Baker doesn't work out, if Kyle Trask doesn't work out, apparently if Will Levis doesn't work out, you call Lamar, you bring him in. Maybe you work that deal with a much more stable salary cap number, and you've had a year to bring in some draft picks and stabilize your defense, stabilize your offensive line just a little bit more. So again, appreciate the question there from you, Danny, and everybody else that sends in questions from time to time. But that is my answer. Again, James may have a different opinion, but I feel like he probably agrees with at least most of what I said. But I thank you, Danny, for that question, opportunity to kind of voice the opinion on that topic. And I thank you, Bucs fans, for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or your first view of the day. For your second, check out Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I will be back again tomorrow solo. So you got more topics, more questions you want to discuss, let me know. Drop them in the comments, drop them in email, drop them on Twitter. You can go to lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com or Locked On Bucs on Twitter to hit up those DMs. One last time, I'm David Harrison, your Tuesday host of Locked On Bucs, here solo for Mock Draft Monday. Until we speak again, make sure you're checking out everything that's happening at bucksnation.com, bucksgameday.com. Find me on Twitter at dharrison82. Find James at @JYarcho_Bucs. And of course, find the show at Locked On Bucs. If you're out and about, please be safe. Be kind to one another. Fire the cannons. And thank you for joining me right here on the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.